Now, I'll warn you, this is not something you're likely to see anywhere else, or you might have seen if you are eccentric like me. It's something I have come across more than 40 years ago. So you will not find books and literature on this, but it never ceases to amaze me the power of such a simple concept. So I hope in the few minutes ahead of us, you will get the real idea, the gist of it, and quickly can see how you can apply it. So we have a triangle, which I always love a concept that is got a visual, because that's very hard, easy to assimilate. When you have a visual in your mind, it's hard to forget it. So we have a triangle with communication, affinity, reality on the corners of it, and then we can see understanding in the middle. Now, those maybe need a little bit more clarity what we mean by reality, etc., and I'm going to cover that. But just after we get the feel for it, I am going to either invite you, and if you don't come forward, I'll look at anybody I see in front of me and I'll ask them to jump in, because these are human relation things. They have nothing to do with expertise, technicality, whatever. No human being walking on two who hasn't come across this, lived this, so it should be very easy to speak to it. So that's the triangle. Keep that visual in mind. So reality here, we have a very specific meaning. The degree of agreement. Let's face it, if I say in front of us, let's say there's a table, and I say that's a table, and you turn around and say, no, I see a chair. What is the degree of agreement between us? And you might think this is a silly example. Who's going to disagree about chair and table? But if we do disagree, the reality collapses, because I see you as something alien to me. You see me as maybe stupid, or you don't understand what's around us in the world. And you will let me use examples that actually we live with them but don't see it that way. So this is usually an easy example for me to give whenever it comes to Trump. He's such a divisive figure, very easy to bring him up. Now, you'd be surprised how many people think Trump is great. I'm not so sure we have that many on the call today that think that way. But he does have 72 million Americans that think he's great. And I am surprised that some of our American friends, not realizing, thinking the whole world knows he's an idiot, actually are supporters and a very big admirer of Trump. So if I ask you who thinks Trump is a great leader or is an idiot, can I have a show of hands? Who thinks he's a great leader? At least on my screen, I haven't seen any hands. I assume Michelle thinks he's a great leader, so should Sham, I think. Sham, why do you think he's a great leader?
He takes bold decisions.
Okay, so you do admire him. That's perfectly fine.
Yep.
Okay. And who thinks he is a crazy, reckless idiot that causes polarization, whatever is your views? Can I have a show of hands here so I can maybe choose somebody to speak? Okay, Khalil, why do you think he is a crazy idiot?
I don't know, but I don't like him at all.
You don't like him. So that is also perfectly fine. It's inner feeling. Vishy, why do you think he's a bit of a risk to even the United States and maybe to humanity?
Maybe the decision that he takes, he doesn't see what are all the after effects of it. So maybe it could be a decision that he takes for that moment. That is what I feel.
Okay. So if you were having a dinner or something with Sham or Michelle, and one thinks he's great, one thinks he's a reckless idiot, this is what happens. The level of understanding between you okay, is brought down by lack of agreement. So one corner of the triangle can drag the whole triangle down. If you bring the triangle down, you lower understanding. If you have a high level of agreement, you're likely to have a high level of understanding. Let me put another example. This is a little bit of a heated debate. So people talk about two-state solution, and when you look at the reality is agreement. What are the two states? It was supposed to be all of this is Palestine, and today it's mostly Israel. And they managed to fragment it and gobble it up so much that even if there is a two-state solution, exactly what state is sitting with who? They didn't leave much for a two-state solution. That's why Arab and Israelis or Palestinians and Israelis will have a hard time agreeing. The perception is Palestine and you gobbled it up. Israeli says this is our promised land and we'll give you whatever story they have, and the two shall never meet. Okay, I've seen that, just to go back to our friend here, Trump. I've seen that even with Narendra Modi. I am amazed with some Indian friends I have. I think they call themselves Parsis. I'm not sure where they come from, the Parsis, but they think he is the worst force that is going to destroy India. And yet some people think he's great. He's a populist. He's, brought India's name up in the world, etc. I'm not going to ask you to have a hands up in case it causes disagreement between colleagues. So I'll leave it at that. So are we all clear what I mean by reality? The degree of agreement between two parties on whatever the issue is, the topic or the article. Okay? So let's go to the other corner of the triangle. Oh, I put here an example for a salesman, because all of those, as much as they're about relationship, because all sales happen between human beings, if you have a good degree of agreement about whether it's quality, service, value, price with the client, the chances are you'll have great reality and you have good sales. And I have witnessed some of you are masters at this. Somehow the customer really like your story, your approach, etc. And they believe when you talk about service, quality, price, and you close deals in even accounts where in the past where you struggled to get deals. So that's how it would affect in a sales situation. Affinity is the degree of liking. Okay, we're not talking about love here, although that's maybe part of it. But how do people, like each other? Whether they are partners, they may be client, a salesperson, they may be two colleagues in the office, and it goes up and down, and it affects the triangle. So it's another pillar of the triangle, is a corner. So if this boy wants to get close to this girl, he takes her a bunch of flowers, she shoos him away. Get away from me with your flowers. Can you see how the triangle crashes? Because there's a rejection here. There's a degree of liking. If she didn't show any liking, that comes down. And that's really something to bear in mind. In a sales situation, hopefully you see the body language. If prospects like you, they open up to you. They want to even use you as a consultant. They appreciate and admire your opinion. Even if they give you a hard time, in the end, they can't help but be influenced by you. Again, great affinity equals great sales. Don't expect somebody who doesn't like you and his body language show it to actually do a lot of business with you. This is so essential. And I hope you're beginning to see a pattern that when you're trying to get close and improve understanding with someone, there are many keys to that, if you like, treasure place we call understanding. One key we've seen is agreement, reality. One key now we're looking is affinity, and the next key is communication. What is this saying? And keep it in mind, because I'm going to jump and ask you in a minute, that if you want to improve understanding, you can come at it from 3 different places. Sometimes a place is easier than another. So you don't come at it. For instance, if you have you have a disagreement, both of you, a huge disagreement about Narendra Modi, go back to him. If you try to get close to a colleague, you don't go for a bite together and bring him up. If you bring up that topic, the chances of agreement is very limited. Or you will inwardly, both of you feel you're faking it if you don't want to disagree. So there are things you will know how to address and how to lift that relationship. So let's now cover communication. The exchange of information and ideas between people. That is communication. Simple. And something really important about communication, it opens a lot of avenues. It could be about anything. And it really doesn't matter. The content is not as relevant as the exchange of ideas and information. Okay? So I give you an example. I don't hardly ever deal with estate agents, but some of them are clever. They don't just keep phoning. They start sending you information, ideas. You may or may not look at them, but you notice the level of communication is healthy, is informative, is useful. You can't help but thinking, this is maybe a useful person to talk to. So they get very good. And I've seen some of you are really clever at how you get close to your clients. You feed them, you send them white paper, you send them references, and they think, so-and-so, he knows what he's talking about, and I don't mind asking him to help me. What do you think, Anil? Have you used that technique before?
Morning. Yes, I always use it. That's my biggest winning tool, actually. Every time a customer brings up something, I give him some points where potentially he could save money. And he says, okay, this guy's thinking for me how to save money. And that sort of gets me closer to the client. And that's how I start building up a relationship to really take it forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So you figured intuitively, we don't have to bring it out in this manner, but that's exactly what you know. If somebody is feeling down at the dump, don't we all know that some friendly level of communication brightens their day, brings out their level of affinity, their level of reality, and they warm up to you. So that always works. If you want to get close to a partner, your partner, nothing like a phone call or a WhatsApp these days. Remember the days I was studying this 40 plus years ago, there was not even internet. So now we're talking about WhatsApp and whatever else we use for communication. Okay, so you've got those 3 tools. So let's now say, what is primary? Is communication primary? Is affinity primary? Is reality primary? And or are they all primary to reach higher level of understanding? Let me have some suggestions from some of you. Anybody raise your hand if you think you've got a view, or speak straight away. Yeah, Giant, go ahead.
All 3 are actually interdependent, but communication is the most powerful tool. And we just have experience in interpersonal relationships and with clients. Even if reality and affinity are low, with communication, you manage to do that. So I can give you a classic example. I keep getting from Zishan the awards list which we win. I keep sending it to my clients. So that produces an interest in my client. At the same time, I even wish them on their festivals. So again, it raises a little bit of an affinity in them and they start coming closer. So in my experience, reality and affinity can be controlled more by communication. So communication is definitely the most powerful tool. and can grow the triangle at any point of time. Back to you,
It's
sir.
quite valid because regardless of the level of disagreement, okay, or liking or lack of it, you can still talk. You can start in neutral ground. So let me ask now somebody else. Let's say I want somebody who has a partner, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a close partner, and you have a disagreement between you. You have an upset. And you think, Fayez talked about this triangle. Let me see if I can use this. And actually, the disagreement is a little bit serious. You're not talking, you're not seeing eye to eye, etc. And I say, okay, how would you use that triangle? And I need somebody to jump in before I choose somebody and then put you on the spot. It's good if you can volunteer.
Disagreement is quite common in our life. But that is the first basic understanding I should have. Then I should communicate. Yes, we disagree, but we can agree on many things.
No, okay, let me give you an example of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something, let's say I am really upset with my wife and we disagree about something intensely. Okay? So I'm thinking, how do I raise that triangle with such a low agreement? The reality is in the ditch. So where do I start? Think, okay, don't go to that disagreement because if you touch it, it's like live wire. It's going to ruin everything. So I would go with, how are you this morning? Is a communication.
Affinating.
Okay. Well, I like what you've got on. I know that maybe nothing to do with anything. Then I say, regardless of what we disagree about, I really appreciate everything you do. Now you got into the affinity, pushing that, and the communication, pushing. And more and more you talk, that level of the triangle is going up and up and up. Now you can say, I know we have our disagreement, but since I admire you, since I appreciate what you do, and I really like to have harmony, what do you say we do this or do that? Now you're closer to solving a problem. So I'm looking for real life example. Now I've covered the partner one, which is usually the harder one. Let me ask you, you have a disagreement with a client. He doesn't want to see you. Usually that happens. Maybe before you had a relationship, maybe he was let down at something, and now you have a problem. If you're clever, you see, okay, which corner of the triangle shall I use? Which entry point to help the situation and elevate the whole thing? I can't speak to him now, maybe, but what else can I do to start? If you want to start with communication, communication doesn't mean a phone call. There are many, many ways you can communicate, but you need to do something to enhance the relationship. And let's not assume it is really that bad that they won't speak to you. And let's say it's not a partner, a client, it could be a vendor who favors somebody else, but actually doesn't want to deal with you. Maybe it's got some long-standing relationship with a competitor. How would you elevate their understanding? How would you get close to them?
Understand the reality of the situation, communicate it that way, then try to get the goodwill during the course of the time, if not for this deal, but for the second deal onwards, and also try to make my point clear to the customer that I also add value to the entire situation. So for me, if I look at it, it's a mix of all three, but the first point will be communication.
Okay, so you would use communication as the entry point. And let's say you want to also help the other 2 points. Don't you go and say, sure, can we go and have a bite together?
Yes.
That's a level of liking. You don't sit and break bread or have lunch with somebody you dislike. So that could be an entry point. Or can we meet for a cappuccino or something? What about reality? You may not have an agreement. He is convinced that your competitor is the best suited for them. What if you say, okay, can I just share with you some information? Now we want to increase agreement. You say, okay, look, these are the accounts that we map thoroughly. And you put in front of him 100 accounts with details, with size of the business, with the decision maker and how you map them, etc. Now, you both agree that actually we know what we're talking about. We have the people, we have the certification, we have the mapping, and he thinks, no, why have I been ignoring these people? They could well be, assuming there are no, if you like, ulterior motives. This is just a simple business, but historically they've been comfortable with somebody and they find it hard to change. Can you see how you can use the communication, the affinity, the reality, and before you know it, and it doesn't take a long time, that's the beauty of human relationship, you've elevated the whole thing of understanding. So we're at 9:35. I don't want to drag it out, but can I count on you? Is there anything I said that still doesn't make sense before we part? Because this is a simple tool that I have used for 40 years. I hope you will use it with me going forward. Any questions before I sign off? Okay. Thank you very much. Please leave any comment you may have and have a great day.